Thank you for choosing the beautiful 12 by 14 Grand Gazebo from Yardistry. We're confident you'll find the assembly process straightforward as long as you work through each step in the assembly manual. In addition, this helpful hints video offers tips and tricks we've learned along the way for handling some of the more critical steps. Step 1. Inventory. Before beginning assembly, sort your inventory by laying out each of the wood parts and hardware on the ground. Then, using the stamps or marked reference numbers, take a few minutes to cross-reference each part with the list in the assembly manual. Remember, we're always here to help. Contact us if you find a part that is damaged or missing. Take a moment to record the carton ID stamp for each box that you receive. There is a space on the stop page in your instruction manual to write down the first 5 digits that come before 14459 and also the letter at the end. Post assemblies. When attaching the post mounts to the bottom of the post assemblies, keep the bolts loose before installing the pan screws on the inside of the post. It is okay to fasten the screws on the inside of the post at an angle. Once the pan screws are secure, go back and tighten the bolts. When the post assemblies are complete, you will have 2 right posts and 2 left posts. Beam assembly. Before installing wood screws in the short beam assembly, use long bolts to make sure the holes are aligned. It may be helpful to use the bolt as a pry. Once all holes are aligned, have someone look down the boards to make sure they are straight, then attach with wood screws and tighten all bolts. Before installing the wood screws in the long beam assembly, use long bolts to make sure the holes are aligned. You also want to make sure that the bolt heads are on the same side of the assembly as the lap joint in the center of the boards. The long beam assembly should overhang by 1 3/8 inches. If the measurement is not correct, use a long bolt as a pry until the measurement is met. Have someone look down the boards to make sure they are straight, then tighten the bolts and install the wood screws. Post and beam assembly. On a flat, solid, and raised surface, place a post left assembly and post right assembly with the cutouts at the top of the posts facing outwards. Place a short beam assembly so that it sits flush to the top and outside of each post, then attach with a hex bolt in the bottom hole. The top hole should remain open as it is used later in the assembly. With a helper, place an arc gusset short so it sits tight to the bottom of the beam and flush to the outside of the post. Attach a hex bolt in the top hole of the gusset. The bottom hole will be used later. Make sure the post and beam are square, then pre-drill the top hole in the beam and the bottom hole in the gusset, then attach with leg screws. Next, pre-drill, then attach leg screws through the gusset into the bottom of the beam. Frame assembly. You'll need 4 people for the frame assembly. Make sure you carry out this step in the final location of the structure. Stand both short side assemblies up, having a helper hold each one in place. Have 2 people lift a long beam assembly into place. It is important to make sure that the bolt heads on the long beam assembly are towards the bottom. Using a hex bolt in the top hole, attach the long beam assembly, making sure the ends of the beam are tight to the ends of the short beam assembly and flush to the top of each post. The bottom hole in the beam should remain empty for now. Next, have a helper place an arced gusset so it sits tight to the bottom of the long beam assembly and flush with the outside of the post and attach with a hex bolt in the top hole. The bottom hole in the gusset will remain empty for now. Before continuing, check to make sure all measurements on page 21 of your manual are met. Your unit should measure 15 feet, 2 1/8 inches diagonally between posts. On the front and back of the assembly, from the outer edge of each post, it should measure 12 foot, 10 3/8 inches. The shorter sides of the assembly should measure 10 foot, 10 3/8 inches from the outer edge of each post. You may need to slightly adjust the post to meet the desired measurements. Double check that the long beam assembly and post are square, then pre-drill the bottom hole in the beam and the gusset and attach to the post with lag screws. Next, pre-drill and use lag screws to attach the gusset to the long beam assembly. Lastly, place a rafter to post bracket tight to the edges of the beam assemblies and attach with pan screws. Roof panel assembly. Use a flat, solid, and raised surface when assembling the roof panels. It's important that all of the corners are flush, so get some assistance holding the ends of the rafter corner left, rafter corner right, and rafter in place. When they are aligned, attach with wood screws. It is also crucial to get the positioning of the fascia beam assembly right. If the ends don't align properly, try rotating the fascia beam assembly. Once you get the ends to fit properly against the rafter corner left and rafter corner right, attach with wood screws. When you're attaching the end of the rafter to the fascia beam assembly, make sure it's centered over the two pilot holes on the fascia beam assembly. If the end of the strap or strap short isn't flush with the end of the rafter corner left or right, have someone hold the boards in position, then fasten with wood screws. When you're attaching the rafter short right or left, fasten it at the bottom first, where it connects to the fascia beam assembly. Then fasten it at the top of the rafter corner right or left. Flip one of the small roof rafter assemblies over and measure 1.5 inches up from the fascia beam assembly and make a mark. Place a roof to beam bracket so that it is centered on the rafter and the bottom of the bracket aligns with the mark, then attach with pan screws. It's essential to work on a flat and solid raised surface for this part of the assembly. Use a flat edge to check the alignment of the fascia beam assembly. If there's a gap like this, flip the beam over. In the correct position, the top of the fascia beam is level with the top of the rafter. Check to make sure there is a distance of 22 3/4 inches between the rafters before attaching the fascia beam. Make sure each corner is flush when you install the rafter corner left and right. Get someone to hold the boards in place, then attach with wood screws. Next, position the strap short large roof in the notches of the rafter corner right, rafter corner left, and the two rafters. Make sure that the ends don't overhang, then attach with wood screws. Now, move the strap left large roof and strap right large roof into place so that they fit into the notches of the rafter corner left and right and the two rafters. Don't attach them yet. First, position the rafter short right so that it fits into the grooves under the strap right large roof. When it is snug, attach one end of the rafter short right to the large fascia beam assembly. Then attach the other end of the rafter corner right. Repeat to position a rafter short left into the grooves under the strap left large roof. Attach it in the same manner, first to the large fascia beam assembly and then to the rafter corner left. Next, fasten the strap left large roof and strap right large roof. Get some help to ensure the ends don't overhang the edges of the rafter corners, then attach with wood screws. To complete the step, use wood screws in the remaining holes to attach the straps to the rafters. Turn the large roof rafter assembly over and position a strap brace over the ends of the strap left large roof and strap right large roof between the rafters. Make sure the edges are flush, then attach with wood screws. Next, measure 1.5 inches up from the fascia beam assembly and make a mark. Place a roof to beam bracket so that it is centered on the rafter and the bottom of the bracket aligns with the mark, then attach with pan screws. Gloves are essential for this part of the assembly because roofing materials can have sharp edges. To prevent scuffing, remove the clear and blue protective film from both sides of each aluminum part just before you use it. If you're using a power tool, Take care not to over tighten the roofing screws, as that can damage the roof panels. We recommend hand tightening the roofing screws until they are snug. Continue on a flat, solid, and raised surface and position a long panel right onto the small roof rafter assembly so that it's flush to the side of the rafter corner right. The holes on the rib should be centered on the rafter and the panel should overhang slightly at the bottom edge of the fascia beam assembly. Now, move the long panel left into place. One rib should overlap one rib on the long panel right. Make sure the other side is flush to the rafter corner left. And once again, the bottom edge will overhang slightly. When the panels are aligned, attach them with 4 roofing screws in the locations shown here on page 35 in your manual. Take care not to over tighten the roofing screws. Place a right short panel onto the roof rafter assembly so that a rib overlaps the long panel right. It should be flush to the edge of the rafter corner right and overhang slightly at the bottom. Repeat to install the left short panel. It's okay if the panel edges aren't quite flush with the rafter corner left or right. Just make sure they don't overhang. If they do, loosen the roofing screws at the top of the assembly, then remove the other 3. Adjust the roof panels so that they are aligned correctly, then replace the roofing screws and tighten. Get some assistance to position a roof edge left and roof edge right along the bottom of each small roof panel assembly. Make sure the ends meet tight in the center and the other end sits flush to the outer end of the fascia beam assembly. Then attach with roofing screws. Peel away a small portion of the backing on a strip of weather seal. Then begin attaching it to the rounded bottom of a ridge cap. Next, measure 2 3/4 inches from the bottom of a rafter corner right and rafter corner left and make a mark. Place the ridge clip so that one end is flush to the top of the assembly and the bottom of the ridge clip aligns with the mark. As long as one end is flush to the top, the other end will not overhang. Take care not to push down on the ridge clip. Attach with screws, then repeat for the other side. It is important to do the next part of the assembly on a flat, solid, and raised surface. Place a middle panel onto a large roof rafter assembly. Make sure the holes at the side of the panel are over the rafter. In the correct position, there will be a slight overhang at the top and a large overhang at the bottom of the panel. Now, place a long panel right on the assembly, followed by a long panel left. They should be flush to the edges of the rafter corner left and right and overhang the fascia beam assembly on the bottom. When the panels are aligned, attach with 4 roofing screws in the locations shown here and on page 38 in your manual. Repeat to install a short panel left and right on the assembly. It's alright if the panels aren't perfectly flush with the edges of the rafter corner right or left. Just make sure they don't overhang. If they do, loosen the roofing screws at the top of the assembly and remove the other 3. Then adjust all of the roof panels. When they are aligned correctly, replace the roofing screws and tighten. On one of the large roof panel assemblies, place a spacer top so that it is centered on the top and flush to the outside edges and attach with wood screws. When you're attaching the roof edge left and roof edge right at the bottom of a large roof panel assembly, make sure the curved finish edge is the one over top of the roof panels. Attach with roofing screws. Peel away a small portion of the backing strip of weather seal, then begin attaching it to the rounded bottom of the ridge clip. Next, measure 2 3/4 inches from the bottom of a rafter corner right and rafter corner left and make a mark. Place the ridge clip so that one end is flush to the top of the assembly and the bottom of the ridge clip aligns with the mark. As long as one end is flush to the top, the other end will not overhang. Take care not to push down on the ridge clip. Attach with screws, then repeat for the other side. Attaching roof panels. Do not attempt this part of the assembly in windy conditions. You'll need 4 people and 3 ladders for this part of the assembly. Assign one person to remain in the middle throughout the roof assembly to support the roof panels. On each short beam assembly, measure 4 feet 11 inches from the inside of a post and place a mark on the beam. Now, get 3 people to lift a small roof panel assembly, the one with the roof to beam brackets on it, over a short beam assembly. Be careful not to scratch the roof panels or scuff the beam with the roof to beam brackets. The center roof to beam bracket should line up with the mark you made on the short beam assembly. As the person in the middle holds the top of the assembly in place, make adjustments so that the corners are centered over the roof to post brackets. Next, lift a large roof panel assembly over a long beam assembly so that it fits snugly against the panel already in place. When the edges of the 2 roof panels are aligned, connect them with hex bolts. If you're having trouble getting the corners or the bolt holes to line up, have the person in the center push up on one or more of the panels to find the right fit. Install the remaining large roof panel assembly. Adjust the 3 panels as needed. In the correct position, the top 3 edges of the panel form a square. To make it easier to install the peak loop, place a piece of tape over the nut. That way it doesn't fall out during installation. Lift the last small roof panel, the one with no roof to beam brackets, into place over the short beam assembly. Get someone to push up on the peak loop so that the top of the panel slides under the edge of the peak cap. It may take some effort to get the 4th panel in place. Have the person in the center push up on one or more of the roof panel assemblies to achieve the right alignment. If the last small roof panel doesn't fit, try the following. Check to make sure it does not have roof to beam brackets installed. If they are installed, remove them. Try loosening all 6 other hex bolts installed during the roof panel assembly. That may allow for more room to adjust the panels. Refer back to your manual. Make sure all the parts of the roof rafter assemblies are flush and that the roof panels don't overhang the rafter corner right and left. Once the panel assemblies are lined and the corners are flush and sit on the roof to beam brackets, tighten all bolts. With some assistance to lift the roof panel, insert 3 roof to beam brackets under the last small roof panel installed. The roof to beam brackets should be centered on the rafter and tight to the inside of the beam, then attach with pan screws. It's important to get the roof placement just right. If necessary, push up on the peak to ensure a tight fit. Each corner should be aligned over the center of the roof to post brackets. Make sure all the roof to beam brackets are flush and tight to the beam assembly. When the roof assembly is in place, attach it with 2 screws at the end of each fascia beam. For better access, loosen the roofing screw on the roof edge before inserting the screw into the fascia beam assembly. Remember to remove the plastic film from both sides of a ridge cap before you're ready to install it. If the ridge cap doesn't slide in smoothly, add a few drops of liquid soap on the inside of the cap before reinstalling. It may also help to have someone push up on the middle of the roof assembly. If the ridge cap still won't go on, or an obstacle is blocking it, try bending the ridge clip up on one side. Hook one side of the ridge cap over the bent side, then push down on the other side until it catches. Slide the ridge cap on, and have someone push up on the peak cap long so the ridge cap can slide underneath it. Then push down to bend the ridge clip back into place. Place a tie wrap bracket tight to one end of a tie so that the ends fit together nicely. Attach the tie wrap bracket with 1 pan screw through the hole closer to the middle of the tie. Now get a helper to hold the tie in place against the rafters so that it is level. Attach the tie to both sides of each rafter with the appropriate hardware. Pre-drill through the other hole on the bottom edge of the tie wrap bracket and attach it with a pan screw.